Now we're going to get to the actual forum part and get kicked off with questions. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. My question to you both is, what do you see as the most important things affecting our economy and jobs for people just getting out of high school and starting college and young professionals, and how can we address those? So I guess we'll turn it over to Mr. Younger first, and then Jake.
What creates jobs? Where do you get them? Democrat infiltrator. Where do we get jobs? Come on, this is an easy question. The first thing we have to do is to get our youth to understand where jobs come from. Where do jobs come from? Somebody tell me, please. Tell me nobody knows. Businesses, okay? So what does a business do?
Provide a service.
It does something, right, that somebody's willing to trade something else for. We call that commerce. What we have to do if you want more jobs, it's very simple. This is like Austrian economics 101. It's very simple. You have to provide larger opportunities for citizens to engage in commercial activity. That's it. That's how you increase the number of jobs. How do you tamp down the number of jobs? You pick winners in the economy. Our government picks winners. You think Twitter and Facebook got to the top by a meritocratic process? Think again. The government has a venture capital fund, and they were huge beneficiaries of the U.S. government's venture capital fund, and other companies were not. They were picked. They were given government contracts because of those relationships. This is not how you produce lots of jobs. This is how you produce large multinational companies that hire non-citizens. So the first thing is you have to provide a regulatory environment that allows individuals to engage in commercial activity and makes this very easy. There's a couple of problems we have doing that. One, what does a contract mean anymore? If you look at some of the recent rulings that have gone up to the Texas Supreme Court, do y'all know that we have two Supreme Courts?
No.
Yes, we have two Supreme Courts. So we have a criminal Supreme Court called the Court of Criminal Appeals, and it's at the same level as the Texas Supreme Court, which handles civil cases. And one of the things that unintended consequences, for example, of the heartbeat bill, which I supported and lobbied for, but it created a new kind of tort. That's not been done in probably 300 years in Anglo-Saxon law, by the way. That was a very radical thing to do. It probably needed to be done because abortion is also a very radical thing. The level of abortion on our side is also very radical. But, these kinds of things interrupt the reliability of contracting. Contracts have to be reliable, they have to be adjudicated in a consistent way, and if people believe that, they will engage in commercial activity. If they don't believe that, they won't. So part of the issue is also our money system. I'm talking about federal issues right now. I'll get to Texas. Part of this problem is our money. We have a debt-based money system. Every dollar in circulation is the result of a debt transaction. When somebody buys a house and $300,000 is credited to somebody's account to pay for the house, the bank doesn't have $300,000, right? The District Federal Reserve Bank simply adds that to their reserve account, right? That's inflation. That's why they tightly regulate the housing market. You want to know why they tightly regulate the housing market? It's one of the #1 ways to create money in this economy. All right, so you have to think through, and I think Ron Paul talked about this, his entire time in the Congress. You have to get sound money practices. The Federal Reserve was created to keep inflation under control, and it hasn't done that. We've had nominal inflation at 3%, but everybody knows it's been more like 5 and 7%, and it's way higher than that now. Under conditions of inflation, it's very difficult to price in the loss of the money value of payments into the future for large projects. So it tends to diminish large projects and cause people to hold their money. And is it a good thing to hold your money in an inflationary environment? It is not a good thing. So you wind up in a kind of death spiral. So those are like big issues that we have to address at the federal level. The Texas delegation, the legislature, can put a lot of pressure on the Texas federal delegation to fix those things. Let's talk about what we can do at the state level. At the state level, we can start to nullify federal regulations. We should start to ignore federal regulations that are unconstitutional. I have done this personally. So this talk I'm giving you right now is illegal. A judge has put me under a gag order. She did it specifically to prevent me from running for office. And she prohibits me from giving any public talk. I cannot talk to a reporter. I cannot be recorded. I cannot make a blog post. I cannot write an article for a newspaper. I cannot be interviewed by a newspaper. I cannot talk about any LGBT issue. I cannot tell you whether my son is a boy or a girl, all kinds of things. So I've told the judge I don't follow unconstitutional orders. You should throw me in jail and give me the maximum jail sentence. And I'm going to go to the appeals court and we'll see who's right. Now she's declined to do that because she would lose. We have to start doing that at the state level. Okay, we have to start saying, I'm sorry, federal government, you're not enforcing our border. Well, we're going to hold tax receipts from the IRS office in Austin and pay for the border control. That's simple. We have to be willing to, look, the regulatory environment that's hurting you in business formation and enhancing commercial activity is mainly federal regulation. State regulations can be a problem too, though. Why? Is it because they're onerous? Not really. I mean, I've done a lot of business in Texas. I have a small business in Texas. They're not onerous. The tax system is very clear. It's very easy to plan for. The problem in Texas is corruption in the administration of the regulations, particularly land use regulations. So who you vote for the Railroad Commission, this is very important. The Railroad Commission is going to determine who owns minerals under the ground. And it's not always, if you look at some of the cases they look at, it doesn't seem to always be based on geology. Let me just say that. So that, again, corruption affects your ability to engage in commerce. And finally, we have got to teach young people how to run businesses early on, right? We adopted this German model of the education system with grades where students all progress at the same level. Like, I always wonder why. I was like, 10th grade in math and like 2nd grade in history. Like, why do I have to always be at 2nd grade in all of them? Like, why do I have to be, it doesn't make any sense. Students don't advance that way. But we adopted this system, and it was designed to give us good employees in factories in the industrial era. That's what it was designed for. In the information era, we need a different kind of education system which encourages discovery learning, which encourages risk-taking. I've done teaching and I modified the grading system. Let me give you an example and relate this to economic issues. I graded papers as many times as students would turn them in. I never took anything off. When you stopped turning your paper in, whatever was wrong was the grade you got. Why? You're supposed to make mistakes and learn from them. How are you going to learn from mistakes if you're failing homeworks and then you quit the class? Right? Keep trying to do your homeworks as long as everybody should get 100 on the homeworks, right? If you get 100 on the homeworks, you're going to pass, even if you get a D on the final, right? So we have incentives that are bizarre, and we're teaching young people the wrong kinds of behaviors to be successful in an information economy. And we don't often talk about that as Republicans. We talk about policy and fiscal policy, but human temperaments and human aspirations and the kind of aspirations that we leave to younger people and the examples that we set are massive. You're born into a community with rules and expectations that you didn't create. And you're going to create such a world for people behind you. So education should really look at things like that, like what temperament and what kind of person will succeed in the information economy. Thanks.
Jobs. Like I said a second ago, it starts at a young age. Whenever I was 13 years old, I was mowing yards in my little small town. I'd keep accurate records and receipts and kind of learned a little bit on how to start a business at a young age. So I know the value of that, the lessons that I learned at a very young age, some of the errors, some of the successes. I saw in entrepreneurship that there was going to be more opportunity for me later because of some of the lessons that I learned. And a lot of that, because of that, that's part of why I'm able to start my landscaping company and be successful now. But it goes back to the experience learning. our students, our younger generation, they've got to be able to have that button. They've got to be able to follow that path. They've got to be able to have opportunities to take trade schools, to have internships at a very young age. Whenever you get to college, and it's, some of you guys know, because y'all have chased politics and, poli-sci, you might go to school for 4 or 6 years or whatever, and if you're working in politics, sometimes it's an internship right after high school, and that they don't always pay very well or at all. And as we start to work on the younger generation, we can continue to boost jobs over the next 10, 20 years. And the effects of what they do is going to help raise up the younger generation to kind of push that up even further. And even back to my energy grid platform, I want to make sure that we're creating jobs, manufacturing jobs. And, a lot of people that are not working right now, it's difficult because so many people are on welfare or they just have gotten comfortable and they don't want to work. And I think that's where that younger generation, that culture, creates competition for the next generation above them. And same for the one below. So we've got to be looking at manufacturing. We've got to be adding that into our state, because everything else is being subsidized. Our labor market, our energy market, all of it. It is all being subsidized. It makes me sick to my stomach. But it's ruined our markets. So we can start focusing on taking away what the government is trying to allow, take our kids into other opportunities, give them school choice, give them opportunities to learn, experience, different things like that. I think that we can really prepare them and get them ready for the next 10, 20 years. Right now, it is subsidized with a lot of our labor. And the more that the federal government comes in, they're going to try to take that over, and they're going to continue to try to feed that to those people, right? So we also have to give incentive for people to get away from the government, to want to go work and build stuff in the community and just be a part of a productive society. And that is something that we're missing today, and I think a lot of it is because we're allowing the federal government to corrupt and poison our culture so much that we have help wanted signs everywhere. I have a landscaping company. It's so hard for me to find employees and find guys that are going to stay. I mean, I had to, at one point this last season, I had to up pay to $20 an hour to actually get some quality guys. Karonda, you have a landscaping company. $20 an hour is a lot, and it takes a lot out of your pay. So even from my perspective, having more entrepreneurs, having people who have that type of mindset, who want to partner in business, who want to have those little bitty entrepreneurs type of relationships, those have so much more value than people just working a minimum wage job. We've got young people who can learn skills, who can teach other skills over time. We've got to be looking at the future. We can't just look at the right now, because there's so many different things at the right now that can be brought up and corrected from the younger generation, from the younger labor market, from what's coming out of that. I think that's so important, and we really, really have to be serious and sincere about removing subsidies, about removing welfare, because it's taken our culture and separated us from people who are productive and people who absolutely don't want to be productive. And I don't have kids yet, but I want my future kids, I want the kids that I teach in my church and in the school, I want them to be able to have opportunity and them to be able to teach other people, raise up another generation that will follow them, and so forth. It's a snowball effect. Once young leaders step up, like we all have, others follow. So that is a big deal to me. I do think that we need to go after that. I think that we've got to have our schools focused on trades, focused on internships. By the time they're 14, 15 years old, they've got to know what they want to do. They've got to have at least some idea of what they want to do. And we can give them that opportunity at a very young age.